Welcome to Scone Baking Beyond. Hi, I'm Kathy, and I enjoy making scones, muffins, cookies, and all sorts of delicious baked goodies. I love apple crumble, which is a traditional Irish dessert, but I want to give it a little twist. So today I'm going to share with you my recipe for Irish apple crumble cake. This delicious cake has apples and cinnamon inside the cake and apple, cinnamon, and crumble on top. This cake will be the perfect dessert for the corned beef and cabbage I'm making for St. Patrick's Day. So let's bake. Okay, the first thing we want to do for this cake is we want to cream our butter and our sugar. So I have here 1/2 cup of butter and it's at room temperature. I'll put this in my stand mixer. There we go. And I have 3/4 cup of light brown sugar. We're going to put this on medium-high speed and beat it for about 3 to 5 minutes until it's nice, light, and fluffy. Okay, our sugar and butter are nice, light, and fluffy, so now it's time to add our eggs. I have 2 large eggs. I'm going to add them to the mixture one at a time, beat them on medium-low speed until fully incorporated. Okay, our first egg is fully incorporated, so now for the second one. Okay, our eggs are totally incorporated, so I'm going to set this aside. And it's time to get our dry ingredients together. So I have a medium bowl here. I have 1 2/3 cup of all-purpose flour. I have 2/3 cup of whole wheat pastry flour. I have 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I have 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to whisk these together until they're combined. I'm going to set this aside. I have here 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. And we're just going to stir this together. And now we're going to set that aside. This recipe calls for 2 apples, but the first apple, we're going to peel it, cut it in half, core it, and then we're going to shred it. So now that I've peeled the apple, it's time to cut it in half. And typically I use Golden Delicious apples when I make my apple crumble, so I'm adding Golden Delicious to my Irish apple crumble cake. So I cut it in half, and to core it, I use a scooper. This is a small scooper. You can either use a scooper or you can use a melon baller or just use a spoon. And we just scoop out that core, like that. And then we just cut off the flower end and the stem end. There we go. So now we're going to set this half the apple aside for later because that's going to go on top. And we're going to shred this apple because this is going to go inside the cake. Okay, our apple is shredded and now it's time to add a little cinnamon and nutmeg. So the cinnamon and nutmeg mixture that we put together earlier, that we set aside, I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of that and add it to our apples. And then we're going to set aside the rest of it for the crumble topping. So now I'm just going to mix that in with the apples. So there's our shredded up apples and cinnamon and nutmeg mixture. We're going to add this to the flour mixture. We're going to mix this in until all these pieces of apple are covered with flour. There we go. All the apples are covered up with flour. This will give the cake a nice, wonderful apple, cinnamon, nutmeg flavor. So we're going to set that aside. So now that our flour mixture is put together with the apples and cinnamon and nutmeg all mixed in, and we have here 1/3 cup of non-fat milk. We're going to start adding that to our butter, sugar, egg mixture, our batter in our mixer here. So I'm going to add about 1/3 of our flour mixture. Drop that down and put in about 1/3 of it. We're going to put this on medium-low speed until it's totally combined. Now that it's combined, we're going to add 1/2 of the milk. And you can just eyeball that. Now that the milk is combined, we're going to add the one half of this mixture, of the flour mixture. And now the rest of the milk. And the remaining flour mixture. We're going to beat this on medium-low speed until it's totally combined. Okay, it's totally combined. Get the beater out of here. Set that aside. Take our bowl out. Set that aside. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more mixing here, just by hand. Just make sure it's all incorporated. And this is a thick batter. So now we're going to put this in my prepared pan. I have a prepared springform pan, and I took a piece of parchment paper and cut it to fit. I greased and floured the sides and a little bit of the bottom. And this is a springform pan. It's better if you make this cake in the springform pan, and there's the bottom, because then you can just take the sides off and it's easier to cut. You can use a 9-inch regular round pan if you prefer, but I like using a springform pan just because it's easier to cut this cake. So it's greased and floured. Put the parchment down. And so now we're going to add our batter in here. And you want to kind of distribute it around the pan because it is thick. Okay, it's all in the pan. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spread this out evenly. And I'm using an offset spatula. And because of the parchment paper, you kind of have to hold down the parchment paper until you get this spread out to the sides. So we want to evenly distribute our batter. There we are. There's our cake part. So we're going to set this aside and get ready for the apple crumble topping. So now it's time to put the apples on top. So I have the 1/2 apple that I already peeled, and I need to peel the second apple. Okay, our apples all peeled, and so what we're going to do is we're going to cut them in quarters. So I'll cut that half in quarters. I'll cut that in half, and then in a quarter. And then how I core these is I just cut out the core that way. There we go. That's quick and easy. And then each quarter I cut in half. Come back there. And then each quarter I thinly slice. I'm going to go in my bowl. Okay, there's all of our apples, all peeled, cored, and sliced up. And earlier when we made our cinnamon and nutmeg mixture, here's the rest of it. Some of it's already in the batter, and now we're going to put in the apples because it is a Irish apple crumble cake. So we got to make the crumble part. So get that mixed up. So we want to make sure that all the apples get coated by the cinnamon nutmeg mixture. There, they're all mixed up. And now to our cake batter. We're just going to sprinkle these evenly on top. There they are. That's the apple part of our apple crumble. So now it's time to get our crumble part together. I have 1/2 cup of light brown sugar. I have 1/3 cup of unbleached flour. And I have 1/3 cup of rolled oats. Get those mixed together. And then I have 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Get that mixed together. And now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of melted butter. Get that all mixed together until it's all coated and crumbly. There. Okay, it's all mixed in. It's getting all crumbly. So now we're going to crumble this on top of our apples. There we go. This is going to be so great. Apples, cinnamon. I love that combination. I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. We're going to bake this for about 50 to 60 minutes, and you want an internal temperature about 205 to 209 degrees. I let the cake bake for about 50 minutes and did the toothpick test. That came out clean. Did the internal temperature, that was about 205 degrees. You want to be between 205 and 209 when you bake a cake like this. And I took it out, put on the cooling rack. I left it there for about 10 minutes, and then I took the band off from the springform pan, and then I let it cool completely. So now it's time to try it. So here it is. We're going to cut into it. Just cut a small piece here. There we go. Oh, doesn't that look wonderful? Cake looks perfect. Apples, the crumble on top. Ah, I lost some crumble. Don't want to do that. So there we have it. All inside. There's that. And now it's time to try it. But before I do, now typical dessert in Ireland, if they do make a Irish apple crumble cake, they will add a little cream sauce to it. So instead of cream sauce, because my favorite food is ice cream, we're going to add a little ice cream to this. So I have my vanilla ice cream here. Let it soften up a little bit. I'm going to put some on top. There we go. Oh. So I'm going to have mine with a little bit of ice cream. So, but first I got to take a bite just by itself. Oh, look at the apples on there, the cake. Oh, the crumble. Get that crumble there. Oh, this is going to be so good. The apples, the cake is nice and soft. Get the cinnamon flavor, the nutmeg, and then that crumble on top. It's just perfect. For the complete recipe, please go to my website, sconebaking.com. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe for future videos. I hope this inspires you to bake. Thank you for watching. Now it's time for the ice cream. Get the whole thing there.